Get ready for a Robot Wars special like no other. Tonight, 8 robot combat shows gear up to show which show is the ultimate in one of the most gruesome and brutal knockout competitions ever. But selecting a machine isn't as easy as it sounds. The best show needs the best representative. And so 2 machines will go head to head in our eliminator rounds to determine which machine will represent which show for our competition. This is going to be brutal, and it's going to be great seeing the lineup. Oh, this is bound to be a very interesting special, with Robot Wars itself being represented by the flipping arm of Firestorm 2 and the flipper of Thermidor. Endgame with the spinning blade, and the flipper of Hydra will be duking it out to represent Battlebots. Sandstorm's flipping wedge will be taking on the South Korean blade of Orby Blade for King of Bots. Rubber Games represented by Whoops with the wedge spike, and Sewer Snake with the interchangeable lifting weapon. Atweight Anarchy enters champions of Series 1 Smidsy against the flipper of Nexus, who won basically everything else. Chaotic Robotics gives us their custom-built representative for the competition, Chaos 2, as well as the lifter and undercutter of Retrograde. Robot Wars Spike Prime will then turn it up to 11 with the lethal blade of High AF to tear apart the new champion Sub-Zero. And then the flipper and flywheel of Jaguar can take on the flipper of Solar Flare, who won both Series 4 and 6 of Robot Wars Revised. Let the ultimate showdown begin! Firestorm 2 Flipper! One of the most iconic machines from Robot Wars is Firestorm, this version being Firestorm 2. The wide flipping arm gives them more leverage to throw their opponents up and over with extra power added to it. The only real issue the machine has, however, is the high ground clearance at the back. Thermidor Flipper! Another iconic machine is the mighty Lobster Thermidor, a very powerful flipper, and also one of the few to throw Behemoth out of the arena effortlessly. The big wheels are also one of its iconic features, combined with its flipper and claws, but the big exposed wheels make for a great target for spinners, and there is a limited CO2 gas supply.
Roboteers, stand by.
Firestorm 2 with the front-hinged flipping arm, and Thermidor with the rear-hinged CO2 flipper. These have never actually fought before in Robot Wars. This should be very interesting, I think.
3, 2,
1, go.
Firestorm the quicker, first off the mark. Thermidor, I don't think knows how to attack. Firestorm does, flips it up and over, and now Thermidor has the power to self-right. And can they? Well, they're trying, I think. There they go. Finally, I think a little bit of help from Firestorm 2 as well. Meanwhile, Firestorm 2 underneath them again and flips him up and over. And I think they tried to throw Thermidor out the arena there. They don't seem to be able to. And you weren't even close enough. Now, Firestorm being buffeted around by the arena spike. Thermidor. Now they're getting attacked by the spike. Back on their wheels. And Firestorm 2 trying to throw them over again. Does so. Now, can Thermidor right themselves? They're trying, I think. The flipper goes. I don't know why. Ooh! Thermidor nearly back onto their wheels there. Not enough. And now, what's going on here? Well, up and over goes Firestorm 2. Now, Firestorm 2 can self-right. There it goes. Quick at succession as well. But look at this. What on earth happened here? I'm not sure, but you can see them. I think something happened with the flipper of Thermidor, and it threw Firestorm over when they didn't actually use the flipper that way. Now they get 2! And throws Firestorm onto the spike next to this, onto the wall near the spike, I should say. Firestorm lucky to get away from that. And now Thermidor flipped up and over. Will Firestorm 2, well, that spike is being a nuisance, Thermidor. Meanwhile, Firestorm flipped up and over once again. And self-rights. Now, how will this is a great first opening battle for the special. It has to be said, Firestorm once again pushing and flipping away against Thermidor. And now, up and over onto the spike. And that's going to cause a problem, isn't it? And down the pit. And Thermidor follows. I think they're a little discombobulated. Jesus is cold. Poor Firestorm too. I think they did most of the work, but they're out. It's Thermidor going through. They did all the work, and that one spike caused it to go away. Thermidor through. Endgame and Hydra. They're next up. Endgame. Spinner. The first ever international champion of the show from Auckland University in New Zealand, winning both 2020 and 2022. Actually had the pleasure of meeting them last year twice at the Armageddon Expo. The front plow provides great controlling pushing power, which leads up to the lethal blade that has caused serious damage in the past. The only real issue they have, which they have admitted to me personally, I should add, is the reliability of the rear self-righting mechanism. Hydra! Flipper! Long and almost difficult to get underneath unless you come at them from the rear, but even that isn't going to be easy as Hydra is rather quick. The flipper is also very strong, may not be as big as other flippers on Battlebots, but it has its own level of power and is not to be underestimated. But as I said, the rear of the machine is more vulnerable, which they'll need to be careful of.
Roboteers, stand by.
Endgame, the New Zealand machine with the spinning blade and the front plow. And Hydra, the American machine with the strong flipper. And they are going to have their work cut out for them against a double champion.
3, 2, 1.
Should remind people that Endgame's a double champion of Battlebots. One 2020, one 2022. But look at this though, Endgame in major trouble and they're both over. And Hydra able to get underneath Endgame. But look at that. And that, I think, is the first time the self-righting mechanism has properly worked. They're both up and over here, look. Hydra rights themselves and then Endgame self-righter works. Which is brilliant. And it works again there. But Endgame, while their self-righter is actually working for once, they are in major trouble against Hydra. They don't seem to be able to get any real purchase. Meanwhile, Hydra able to effortlessly get underneath them and throw them like so. But now Hydra stuck in the little corner blip of the wall, spinning around aimlessly for some reason. And now Hydra, Endgame, they're trying. Endgame is really struggling here, and that is a surprise, and that is a bit of a worry for them. But now Hydra ramps up the top of Endgame. That's not smart. And could this mark the start of Hydra and their downfall? Could this be Endgame's comeback? I think it may just be, because Hydra suddenly is not driving fluidly. They're now trapped in the wall. And Endgame, can they come back underneath, grinding away at the backside? And now the bottom plate's gone. The bottom plate of Hydra's come off. Look at this. Then bang, off it comes. And that means the electronics are fully exposed. Hydra righted. But is there a drive issue? I think there is. They're not driving in a straight, fluid line. I think one of the drives is gone. And that is a worry. And that is a shame. You can see the wheels plopped off. And I feel like that was inevitable at that point. Once the drive was gone, that was an eventuality. Hydra in the pit, Endgame they go through, but truth be told, Endgame very lucky to have won that fight. Extremely lucky. And they've got to have to fix that for the next fight. Hydra, they sadly crash out. Next up, Sandstorm and Orby Blade. Sandstorm! Lifter! Very low to the ground with a rather unique lifting weapon combined with a tough wedge plow to take the spinning hits. Can easily self-right too. Also has very good pushing power, which should cause trouble for machines that don't have great pushing power of their own, but the exposed wheels could prove to be a problem for the machine. Orby Blade! Spinner! A very impressive looking machine from South Korea with a tough rear plow to take the hits and attacks, while the front consists of a dangerous spinning bar. Doing any real damage to this machine could prove to be extremely challenging, but they have stated that self-righting is not their strong point.
Robot ears, stand by.
Sandstorm with the front plow lifting weapon. Very interesting design that, I have to say. And the South Korean machine, Orby Blade, with the rear tough plow and the front lethal blade bar.
3, 2, 1.
Activate.
No wonder. Well, Orby Blade's weapon straight away up and running. Sandstorm thrown over from it. Self-rights quickly though. Now, Sandstorm flung away again. It's a tough blade, that of Orby Blade, but the front of Sandstorm able to take those hits. It's very tough, very sturdy, and able to push Orby Blade, which is a surprise, because that blade is very, very dangerous. But notice how Orby Blade's not really moving, they're turning, but there's no movement, which I actually find rather interesting. And could this actually benefit Sandstorm? Well, it seems to be, as Sandstorm smashes Orby Blade towards the pit, and look at that! Orby Blade's down it! Orby Blade in the pit! And it's Sandstorm going through! Well done!
Cease.
A great victory for Sandstorm, and a well-deserved one. I think they were very lucky, in all honesty. Well done. And I say they were lucky because Orby Blade's weapon looked very dangerous. It could have caused serious problems, but they're out. Next up, Whoops and Sewer Snake. Whoops. Rambot. Built by the same team that built Duck, a four-wheel drive box bot with a spiked wedge to stab and slide underneath to get better perches and ramming them into the wall. No real active weapon on the machine, however, and they have their wheels very exposed, which will be a real problem if they encounter a spinner. Sewer Snake Lifter. The modular lifter comes with different attachments depending on the fight they're in, and can also self-right if up and over. 6-wheel drive and very quick and flexible, very good pushing power, but the 6 exposed wheels can prove to be a major issue.
Robot ears, stand by.
Whoops, with the wedge spike, and Sewer Snake, the 6-wheel drive machine with the modulator lifter with a different configuration, either wedge or forks. This is for Robo Games.
3, 2, 1.
Activate.
Who will their representative be, and who is the quicker? Who is the more effective? Well, Sewer Snake, obviously, they actually have a proper weapon, unlike Whoops. They're both very quick though, but now Sewer Snake underneath Whoops throws them onto the side, puts them back onto their wheels, and Sewer Snake pinning Whoops in the wall. Now, they can't really hold them there. We've had that problem before. If they hold them there, they will be disqualified, Sewer Snake. They're pushing them all out now into the wall at the other end of the arena and near the pit, and throw them in! And they've driven in themselves! Well... well, Whoops hits the pit first. They are gone. And Sewer Snake, they go through, and rather convincingly as well, I should point out. Back to the drawing board for Whoops as they crash out. Sewer Snake, they're going through. Next up, Nexus and Smidsy. Nexus Flipper. A legend in Antweight Anarchy as a machine that has one of the highest success rates in the entire show. A strong drive system, a powerful flipper, a very low front wedge, and a whole lot of fans behind the machine. But will that be enough for them to achieve victory? And will the CO2 last long enough to see victory? Smidsy Rambot. A very strong pushing machine with a lifting wedge and a rear spinning disc, which hardly ever sees any action, was also a very effective machine in Antweight Anarchy, winning the very first series. Flipping it over isn't going to overly affect the machine, but being flipped is an issue it has to face, as it does get flipped rather easily.
Robot ears, stand by.
Nexus with the CO2 powered flipper, and Smidsy with the ramming power, the front lifting wedge, and the rear spinning disc. And this is also a bit of a grudge match because they actually fought before in Antweight Anarchy, the All-Stars, and Nexus threw them out.
2, 1.
So will Smidsy be able to get revenge? Not if they drive up the front of Nexus. They can't do that though. Slam them into the wall and pin them there, which you're not technically allowed to do, Smidsy. It has to be said. There's the spike. And down the pit and trying to right the... Well, that was over in a flash. Smidsy's gone. Nexus is through. Look at this. This is where it went wrong. I think it was the arena spike, actually. There it goes. It threw Smidsy off and down into the pit. And then Nexus comes in to try and throw them out. Ends up in them themselves. And that's very unfortunate because Smidsy were pretty much on top of that fight, as far as I could tell. Nexus, they go through instead. Next up, Chaos 2 and Retrograde. Chaos 2. Flipper. A mascot-like build machine for chaotic robotics with Chaos 2 and the CO2 Flipper. The 4-wheel drive gives good speed and the flipper is quite powerful with a wedge and fork configuration. But there is a limited gas supply in the machine, and the armor isn't all that tough. Retrograde. Flipper Spinner. One of the more interesting designs on Robot Wars, the machine originally comes from Battleboard with a 2-wheel drive, armed with a rear undercutter spinning blade and the front lifting forks, which can also be used to grab and drag the opposition wherever they want. An interesting design without a doubt, but the exposed wheels may prove to be a problem going forward.
Robot ears, stand by.
Chaos 2 with the CO2 powered flipper, which can be switched out for forks instead of a wedge. And Retrograde with the front lifting forks and the rear undercutter spinning blade.
3, 2, 1.
And this should be rather interesting. And, ooh, lifting up their front forks. I'm not sure why they're doing that, Retrograde. Not sure if that's wise or not. Well, it wasn't wise there at the arena. And that's the end of Retrograde. Chaos 2 being lifted up by the spikes, not like it matters. They're through. Look at this, and it was rather effortlessly too. Look at this, underneath, there's the flip, not even near the wall, and out goes Retrograde, out the arena. Chaos 2, they're through to the quarterfinals, well done. Over in a flash. Retrograde, they crash out, Chaos 2 goes through. Next up, High AF and Sub-Zero. High AF Spinner. We've seen just how destructive this machine can be in Battle of the YouTubers, as it caused major damage to Firestorm and even did insane damage to Mortis. The spinning blade is adjustable, which we've not really seen come into play. Without a doubt, one of the most deadliest machines to enter the war zone, but that's not to say it's not invincible. The exposed fields can be an issue, and the armor isn't the most toughest. Sub-Zero Flipper. The reigning champions of Robot Wars Series 2, which they entered as the 23rd seeds. The CO2 Flipper is a very powerful weapon and can still be effective after they lose the Flipper Wedge. Going in as one of the top favorites, but the exposed wheels are a worry, and the turn circle is not all that great.
Roboteers, stand by.
High AF with the spinning adjustable blade. And Sub-Zero, reigning champions of Robot Wars Series 2 with the CO2-powered Flipper.
3, 2, 1.
Activate.
Go.
Who will come out on top of this one, I wonder? Sub-Zero, a favorite. Something seems to have come flying off of Sub-Zero, though, and something else as well. It's one of the wedgelets, and I think that's a tire on the floor there. And now, part of the wedge has got another tire's come off of one of the wheels. And this is why High AF is a threat. The blade is lethal, and now a whole wheel's gone. And there's High AF slamming against the side of Sub-Zero, who's suddenly ground to a halt. Did they knock something out of them, I wonder? Here we go again. There, and again, and I think that attack has killed Sub-Zero. Up and over they go now. And self-rights onto the spinning blade. That's very bad for Sub-Zero, our reigning champions, and this could affect them going into Series 3. Meanwhile, High AF, lethal as they just continue to rip away at Sub-Zero. Off comes the face of the Flipper. Poor Sub-Zero. Been mullered, been ripped to shreds. And this is why High AF is a threat, and this is why High AF... well, High AF seems to be going through in great style. Through to the quarterfinals, and from the looks of it, they have what it takes to go through the whole competition. Well done, IF. Commiserations to our reigning champions. Honestly, quite a surprise to see Sub-Zero crash out, but that's the way the cookie crumbles. High AF through. Next up, Solar Flare and Jabberwocky. Solar Flare! Flipper! Winner of Series 4 and Series 6 of Robot Wars Revised, and definitely a top favourite for this competition. The powerful front-hinged Flipper has seen many machines go flying out of the competition, and the low front wedge makes getting underneath it almost impossible. But there is a ground clearance issue at the back, which is hard to exploit because of the speed, and there is also a limited gas supply. Jabberwocky! Flipper Spinner! Never failed to reach a Heat Final in Robot Wars Revised, and actually made the Heat Final in Robot Wars Series 2, both the main competition and the New Blood Championships. The design is weird, which is why I personally love it, with two wheels inside the machine and a big wheel outside, with the flipper and newly mounted flywheel attachment. Looks effective, but the drive is a bit of an issue for them, in all honesty.
Roboteers, stand by.
Solar Flare with the front-hinged flipping arm, twice champion of Robot Wars Revised, and Jabberwocky with the CO2 flipper, and the newly mounted flywheel.
3, 2, 1.
Activate.
The question is, will that flywheel pay off? Well, clearly not, as Solar Flare's throwing themselves up and over, self-right, and a brilliant backflip as well. And now Jabberwocky pinning Solar Flare into the wall, and they cannot hold them there. Now Solar Flare throws Jabberwocky away. It's a very powerful flipping arm on Solar Flare. No wonder it won Series 4 and reclaimed its title back in Series 6. Throws it again. And I think Jabberwocky, well, this is the end for you. Bye. Out the arena. They're gone. And Solar Flare, I think, rather easily through to the quarterfinals. Cease is called, obviously. I mean, there's nothing else for Solar Flare to do. Jabberwocky's out the arena. Well done, Solar Flare. You go through. Jabberwocky, I think it's time to go back to the drawing board. I don't really think Solar Flare had to struggle there. They're easily through. Jabberwocky, they crash out. So this is how the quarterfinals looks. Thermidor 2 against Sewer Snake. The Spinning Blade of Endgame against the Wedge of Sandstorm. The Flipper of Nexus against the Spinning Blade of High AF. That should be interesting. And then a Flipper Frenzy doing the rear hinge flipper of Chaos 2 and the front hinge flipping arm of Solar Flare.
Roboteers, stand by.
Thermidor with the CO2 powered flipper representing official Robot Wars, and Sewer Snake with the modular lifter representing Robo Games. This should be interesting.
3, 2,
1. Go.
Game of speed and ground clearance this, and right now it seems that Sewer Snake has Thermidor beat on ground clearance. Sewer Snake pretty much making the flipper of Thermidor useless. They can't use their flipper well. Closing it now. And, well, look at that. The front wedge of Sewer Snake easily getting underneath Thermidor. And Thermidor, I don't really think, has an answer for Sewer Snake. Thermidor thrown over, and again, though, righted, granted. And now throwing themselves, and now getting away from the wall, and now being pushed towards the spike. And Thermidor does not have an answer to this. And don't forget, should this happen to go to a judge's decision, they will be marking on style, control, damage, and aggression. And right now, it's Sewer Snake on top. Sewer Snake controlling the fight. Thermidor can't really do much. They're trying though, but Sewer Snake, look at how close they are to the pit. Ooh, that's very, very, very close. How will Thermidor win against Sewer Snake? Well, actually, I think the question is, can they? I'm not overly sure. Sewer Snake driving around aimlessly on the spikes, getting a little bit lost. Now slamming into them. And now Sewer Snake driving back on Thermidor. Easily getting underneath them. There's quite a ground clearance on Thermidor. The pincers are the major threats, as is the rear backside, and Thermidor thrown up and over by Sewer Snake again. Flips themselves off the wall, and Thermidor doesn't have enough speed and power to get away from Sewer Snake, but they can right themselves off the wall, and I think they've done some damage. The Sewer Snake, they're on fire. Look at this. There's the flip, and look! What's happened there? I don't know, but Sewer Snake's on fire. They're not moving. I think I just saw the motor come out. What's that motor do? I think it may be for the weapon, because there it is, up and thrown over, and all of a sudden, Sewer Snake, who looked like they would win this fight, on fire and immobilized. And it's Thermidor who will be luckily going through, very luckily, because as I said before, if this went to the judges, they'd be marking on style control, damage, and aggression, and Thermidor couldn't really do anything to Sewer Snake up until now. And Sewer Snake one more flip and down the pits, and Sewer Snake crashed out of the competition. Thermidor goes through, and in their case, only just. Quite a surprise, but it's Thermidor going through, Sewer Snake crashing out. Next up, Endgame and Sandstorm.
Robot ears, stand by.
Endgame, the Battleboard's representative, two-time champion, with the front plow and the spinning blade, and Sandstorm, the King of Bots representative, with their own plow and lifting wedge, well, whatever that thing is, that beat Orby Blade, surprisingly.
3, 2, 1.
Go.
How will Endgame fare here? Well, not very well. Oh, look at that, they're on their own plow! They're plow and disc, and they can't right themselves from that particular angle, and they definitely can't from that angle either. And Sandstorm, look at that! Down the pit! Endgame's gone! Sandstorm's in there as well! I think they're trying to self-right out of the pit! Can they? Well, since it's cold, they can keep trying if they want. Well, they're not going to be able to now, they're falling in frontwards. But Endgame's gone! Wow! A shocking turning point! Endgame crashes out, Sandstorm goes through to the semi-finals. Next up, Nexus and IAF.
Robot ears, stand by.
Nexus, the Antweight Anarchy representative with the CO2-powered flipper. And IAF, the Spike Prime Robot Wars representative with the adjustable spinning blade. That seems to have been set to their second highest altitude, interestingly enough.
2, 1.
Not very often we've seen that. And it's given Nexus enough time to get underneath them. And Nexus gets IAF up and over. And the sparks fling them away. And IAF, weirdly enough, in trouble. One of the... I think a piece has come off of the wedge of Nexus there. You can see, just see a little bit of red on the floor. Meanwhile, Nexus trying to throw IAF out the arena. Fails on that attempt. Another piece comes off the flip or the flipper of Nexus. And Nexus again nearly had IAF thrown out. And again nearly thrown them out. Nexus desperately wants that. If they can get IAF out the arena, that would be very impressive! And they do now! Out goes IAF! They are gone! Look at this, a great flip! Just right! And overbalances out the arena. They are gone! IAF out of the competition! Nexus goes through to the semi-finals! Well done, Nexus. They survived the lethal blade of IAF. And I actually just noticed IAF was smoking as well. And that's not good, but they're out. Next up, Chaos 2 and Solar Flare.
Robot ears, stand by.
Chaos 2 with the front flipper with the fork attachment this time instead of the wedge, representing Chaotic Robotics. And Solar Flare, representing Robot Wars Revised by Liam Haddock, with the front-hinged CO2-powered flipper. This,
3,
well, let's
two,
just
three,
see who has the lower ground clearance, shall we? I think it'll be Solar Flare. Yes, it will. But they both self-right. And Solar Flare, extremely close to the pit there, throws Chaos 2 away. And now, oh! That's Bar! That's Bar! And that's them gone! That was costly! Out goes Solar Flare, look at this! There's the spike there, the mistimed flip from Solar Flare! And Chaos 2 comes in, throws them out! A costly mistake! And it's Chaos 2 going through to the semi-finals. How about that? I thought Soliflare were going to win that, truth be told. A poor flip from Soliflare cost them the game, and it's Chaos 2 who progresses through to the semi-finals, and this is how it lines up. Nexus with the flipper against Chaos 2 with their own flipper. But first up, it's the CO2 flipper of Thermidor against the flipping blade of Sandstorm.
Roboteers, stand by.
Thermidor with the CO2-powered flipper representing official Robot Wars. And Sandstorm representing King of Bots with the front plow and whatever that lifter device is on the top. This should be very interesting and difficult for Thermidor, truth be told, because they have to fight Sewer Snake, who basically is similar to what they're fighting now, although they can get underneath more easily. But Sandstorm can definitely do the good push! But look at this! Sandstorm! On the edge of the pits and down! And that's very quick! And Thermidor is not wasting time! They are not going back to play with that! Sandstorm in the pit and out! And Thermidor... well, a more easier fight, truth be told. That's all that counts. A great nudge from the claw of Thermidor sends Sandstorm down the pit and out. Next up, Nexus and Chaos 2.
Roboteers, stand by.
Nexus, the Antweight Anarchy representative with the CO2-powered flipper. And Chaotic Robotics' own representative, Chaos 2, with their own CO2-powered flipper, and they've gone back to the wedge configuration for the weapon.
3, 2, 1.
Go.
Will it prove to be more effective? Well, Nexus, very quick, and there the flip! But it's a flip from Chaos 2 that sends Nexus up and over, and another flip there, but now Chaos 2's thrown themselves up and over. Nexus can self-right. Oh, they can both self-right, actually, so flipping each other's not going to be a problem. Well, this is definitely going to be a flipping good time, and probably more chaotic than the fight with Solar Flare. Flip, now they've self-righted. Nexus trying to throw them again. It's all happening here, and another flip, but Chaos 2's the one that ends up and over, and nearly out the arena there. Now on the wall, up and over, still up and over, self-right, there you go. And Nexus trying to, well, Nexus flipped up and over once again, and onto their flipper as well, and now they've righted themselves. Chaos 2 trying to take out Nexus. They can get underneath the weapon when they fire it, but look at that, up and over, and Chaos 2, I think for the first time in this special, in serious trouble. They're in serious trouble, and Nexus has a hold of them. They're doing a very good job, and up and over again. But notice how there wasn't a lot of power behind that flip. I don't think they have any CO2 left in the flipper, or if they do, very minimum left. Not enough to give a full powered flip. You can see there they're firing the weapon, but it's not strong enough to throw Nexus up and over. It's not enough to throw Nexus out the arena. Can Nexus come back from this, or have they too run out of CO2? I think they may have run out of CO2 as well. They're being buffeted by the spike. That spike there gets a lot of action in this arena. And Nexus being buffeted like crazy. But Nexus has a stronger drive than Chaos 2. Chaos 2, however, seems to be able to get underneath the front wedge of the flipper of Nexus. But Nexus can get underneath Chaos 2 at the sides and to the rear and can push them around. Like I said, they have a better drive. We've seen that before in Antweight Anarchy. And they're showing it off now here against Chaos 2. But Chaos 2 once again underneath. This is a very good fight. A very good fight, worthy actually of a grand final. And down the pit! And that's the end of Nexus. They have a strong drive, but not when the wheels are off the ground. Chaos 2 took advantage and threw them down the pit. And it's Chaos 2 representing Chaotic Robotics to face Thermidor. A great show of power from Chaos 2 as Nexus crashes out. Well done, Chaos 2. Surprised they actually got this far. But here they are now in the grand final representing Chaotic Robotics against Thermidor representing Robot Wars. This will be a flipper frenzy and one heck of a grand final.
Roboteers, stand by.
This is it. The grand final. The final showdown. Robot Wars representative Thermidor with the CO2 powered flipper against Chaotic Robotics' representative Chaos 2 with their own CO2 powered flipper. Who saw them coming through?
3, 2, 1.
Go.
Chaos 2's definitely the underdogs. And there's the flip and thrown again. They have a very powerful flipper. And Thermidor. Is Thermidor's drive okay? They seem a little bit slower. There's another flip. And Thermidor's in the pit! And that's the end of Thermidor! Chaos 2 wins the showdown. Look at this. A great flip. Multiple flips through the air, actually, before landing down the pit of oblivion. And it's Chaos 2 with a celebratory flip as they get crowned Ultimate Showdown Champions. Well done, Chaos 2. 8 shows, 16 machines, and a whole lot of metal-munching chaos leads to our reigning champions, Chaos 2, for Chaotic Robotics. Well done, Chaos 2, and thank you to everyone for taking part. And here's hoping for more destructive carnage in Series 3. But until then, take care, and I'll see you next time. Farewell.